I stood there in that empty villa with my phone in my shaking hands, watching security footage from 2 years ago. A woman I'd never seen before was letting herself into my dead daughter's house with a key. Week after week, the timestamps showed her coming back, cleaning, gardening, sitting on the porch talking to nobody. My chest got tight. My daughter Emma had been gone for 2 years, buried in Greenwood Cemetery in Atlanta. I'd left this place to die with her memory. So who was this stranger? And why did she have a key? When I finally looked up from that phone screen, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around slow, and there she was, the woman from the videos, standing right there in Emma's doorway, real as daylight. Her hand covered her mouth. Tears were already falling down her brown face. And when she spoke, her voice was shaking like mine. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have asked permission. But I couldn't let it die. Not after what she gave me." I didn't understand. Not yet. But I was about to. Before I tell you what happened next, do me a favor. If you love these real-life stories about family, loss, and the mysteries that change everything, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and drop a comment telling me what part of the world you're watching from. These stories connect us all. Now let me take you back to where this all began. My name is Raymond Theodore Carter. I'm 72 years old now, but I was 70 when this happened. I lived in Cascade Heights, Atlanta, Georgia, in the same brick house I'd raised Emma in after her mama passed. That house held every memory I had of my little girl growing up. And that villa I'm about to tell you about, that was supposed to be her future. Instead, it became the place where I learned the most painful and beautiful truth of my life. Let me start from the beginning. I remember the day Emma graduated from Spelman College, like it was yesterday, May 2019. Hot as fish grease outside, but I wore my best suit anyway. Navy blue, with the tie Emma picked out for me the week before. She walked across that stage in her cap and gown. And when they called her name, Emma Grace Carter, Bachelor of Science in Public Health, I stood up and hollered loud enough for her mama in heaven to hear. People turned and looked at me. I didn't care. That was my baby girl, my only child. The reason I worked double shifts at the post office for 30 years. The reason I skipped meals sometimes. To make sure she had everything she needed. When she hugged me after the ceremony, she whispered in my ear, "We did it, Daddy. Mama would be so proud." I held her tight and cried right there in front of everybody. Emma's mama, Lorraine, died when Emma was just 12. Breast cancer took her in 6 months. I raised that girl by myself from that point on. Cooked her breakfast every morning. Helped with homework, even when I didn't understand the new math they were teaching. Drove her to dance practice, church youth group, SAT prep classes. She was my whole world. And watching her graduate, man, that was the proudest moment of my life. I thought nothing could ever top that feeling. I was wrong. 3 months after graduation, Emma called me at work. I was sorting mail in the back when my phone buzzed. "Daddy, sit down," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. I told her I was already sitting, which was a lie, but I wanted her to hurry up and tell me. "I got the job," she said. "The one with the Centers for Disease Control. Full benefits. Salary is $65,000 a year, Daddy. $65,000. I dropped the mail package I was holding. My hands went numb. My baby was going to work at the CDC, making real money. doing real work that mattered. I asked her when she started, trying to keep my voice steady. 2 weeks, she said. But Daddy, there's a problem. I need to find a place to live. Somewhere close to the office. Rent in Atlanta is crazy right now. I've been looking at apartments, but everything decent is like $1,500 a month. I don't know if I can swing that with student loans and everything. I told her not to worry. Told her I'd figure it out. But when I hung up that phone, I sat there in that mailroom, feeling the weight of it. Emma had worked so hard. She deserved better than some cramped apartment with thin walls and roaches. She deserved a real home, a safe place, somewhere she could build her life. And that's when the idea hit me. I'd been saving money since Lorraine passed. Not a lot, but steady. Every month I'd put a little something aside in an account I called my Emma Fund. By 2019, I had almost $60,000 saved up. I also had equity in my house in Cascade Heights. I'd paid off the mortgage 2 years earlier. I sat there doing the math in my head. If I took out a home equity loan and combined it with my savings, I could swing a down payment on something small. A condo, maybe, or a townhouse. Somewhere Emma could live without worrying about rent going up or landlords selling the property. I left work early that day and drove straight to see my brother Marcus. He worked in real estate, had his license for about 15 years. I told him what I wanted to do. He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "Ray, you're talking about putting yourself in debt at 70 years old," he said. "What if something happens? What if you can't work?" I told him Emma was worth it. She was my investment, my legacy. He shook his head but pulled up some listings on his computer anyway. That's when I saw it. A small villa out in Brookhaven. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, hardwood floors, a little garden out front. It was listed at $185,000. Marcus said with my down payment, the mortgage would be about $900 a month, and I could rent it to Emma for cost. It was perfect. But there was one problem. The seller wanted a quick close. We had 2 weeks to get everything done. 2 weeks to get approved for the loan, do the inspection, and sign the papers. I barely slept during those 14 days. I filled out forms, got my pay stubs together, went to the bank 3 times. Marcus handled the negotiations and the paperwork. Emma didn't know what I was doing. I wanted it to be a surprise. On the day before her first day of work, I picked her up and told her I wanted to show her something. She thought we were going to look at apartments together. When I pulled up to that villa in Brookhaven, she looked confused. "Daddy, this doesn't look like an apartment complex," she said. I told her to come on inside. I had the key in my pocket. My hands shook as I unlocked that door. When we stepped inside, Emma gasped. The afternoon sun was pouring through the windows. The wood floors gleamed. The kitchen had brand new appliances. It smelled like fresh paint and possibility. Emma walked through slowly, touching the walls, looking in the bedrooms, opening the back door to see the little garden. When she turned back to me, her eyes were full of tears. "Daddy, whose place is this?" she asked. I took a deep breath and handed her the key. "It's yours, baby girl. Your place. I bought it for you." She dropped the key and covered her mouth with both hands. Then she ran to me and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. She was crying and laughing at the same time. "Daddy, you can't afford this," she kept saying. "This is too much." But I told her it wasn't too much. Nothing was too much for her. She was my daughter, my purpose, and this was her place to grow, her place to become whoever she was meant to be. We stood there in that empty living room, holding each other while the sun set outside those big windows. It was one of the happiest moments of my life. But happiness don't last forever. Sometimes it don't even last 3 months. Emma moved into that villa on a Saturday in August. I helped her load up my old pickup truck with the furniture from her college apartment. A futon that had seen better days, a small desk, some plastic storage bins, and about 20 boxes of books. The girl loved to read, always had a book in her hand since she was little. We made 3 trips that day between her old place and the villa. By the time we finished, my back was screaming and my knees were swollen. But I didn't complain. Marcus came by with his wife Denise and their 2 boys to help us unpack. We spent the whole afternoon setting up Emma's new home. Denise helped arrange the kitchen while the boys assembled a bookshelf in the living room. Marcus and I hung curtains and pictures. Emma directed traffic, telling us where everything should go. Around 6 in the evening, we ordered pizza and sat on the living room floor, eating and laughing. Emma kept looking around at her place with this smile on her face that made my heart feel full. When everyone left and it was just me and Emma, she walked me to my truck. The sun was going down, turning the sky pink and orange. "Thank you, Daddy," she said, hugging me one more time. "I'm going to make you proud. I'm going to do something important with my life. I promise." I told her she already made me proud just by being herself. I drove home that night, feeling like the richest man in Atlanta. Emma started her job at the CDC that Monday. Every evening she'd call me on her drive home and tell me about her day. She worked in the epidemiology department, tracking disease outbreaks and helping develop public health responses. I didn't understand half of what she talked about, but I loved hearing the excitement in her voice. She'd tell me about her co-workers, about meetings she sat in on, about data she was analyzing. Sometimes she'd say, "Daddy, we might be on the verge of something big with this flu tracking system." And I'd just listen and ask questions even though I was lost. What mattered was that she loved her work. She was making a difference. Every Sunday, Emma would come to my house for dinner. That was our tradition since she moved out. I'd cook her favorites: fried chicken, collard greens, mac and cheese, cornbread, and we'd sit at the dining room table like we used to when she was growing up. She'd tell me about her week, and I'd tell her about mine, though my stories about sorting mail weren't nearly as interesting as hers about tracking diseases. After dinner, we'd watch old movies together. Emma loved the classics. The Color Purple, Waiting to Exhale, loved Jones. She'd curl up on the couch like she was still a little girl, and we'd watch and talk and laugh. Those Sundays were everything to me. Sometimes I'd drive by her villa during the week just to check on things, make sure the lawn looked good, make sure everything was safe. One time, Emma caught me driving past and called me laughing. "Daddy, are you spying on me?" she asked. I told her I was just in the neighborhood. She knew I was lying. "I love you too, Daddy," she said. In October, Emma threw a little housewarming party. She invited friends from college, co-workers from the CDC, people from our church, and family. About 30 people showed up. I got there early to help her set up. She decorated the place so nice. Fresh flowers on the tables, candles everywhere, music playing soft in the background. She'd even planted some flowers in the garden out front, marigolds and petunias. Her mama's favorites. She said she wanted to keep Mama's memory alive in her new home. That almost broke me right there. During the party, I stood in the corner watching Emma move through the crowd. She was glowing, laughing with her friends, showing people around her home, introducing her old college roommate to her new co-workers. She'd grown into such a beautiful woman, strong, confident, kind, just like her mama. My brother Marcus came up and stood next to me. "You did good, Ray," he said, putting his hand on my shoulder. "Real good." I nodded, too choked up to speak. Later that night, after everyone left and we were cleaning up, Emma hugged me and whispered, "This is the happiest I've ever been, Daddy. Thank you for believing in me." I held her tight and said a silent prayer. Thanked God for giving me this moment, for letting me see my daughter so happy and so loved. I should have prayed for more time. I should have prayed for forever. But I didn't know. None of us ever know when forever is about to end. The last Sunday we had together was November 10th. I remember the date because it was my birthday. I was turning 70. Emma showed up at my house early that morning with a cake she'd baked herself. Chocolate with vanilla frosting, my favorite. She'd written "Happy Birthday" to the world's best daddy in blue icing. We ate cake for breakfast, which was against all my rules, but she insisted. "You only turned 70 once, Daddy," she said, cutting us both giant slices. After breakfast, she gave me my present. It was a photo album she'd made. Every page had pictures of us throughout her life. Baby pictures, first day of school pictures, birthday parties, graduations, dance recitals. The last page had a picture from the day I gave her the villa key, both of us standing in the empty living room with the sun behind us. Under the photo, she'd written, "To my daddy, who gave me everything. I love you more than words can say." Emma. I cried like a baby. Didn't even try to hide it. Emma cried too. We sat there at my kitchen table, holding hands and crying and laughing at the same time. That afternoon, we went to see a movie, some romantic comedy Emma wanted to watch. I fell asleep halfway through, and she teased me about it the whole drive home. When she dropped me off, she hugged me extra long. "I love you, Daddy," she said, "more than anything in this world." I told her I loved her too, told her to drive safe, told her I'd see her next Sunday. But I wouldn't. Because 4 days later, on Thursday, November 14th, at 2:47 in the afternoon, I got a phone call that stopped my world from turning. I was at work when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer because I was in the middle of sorting a batch of priority mail that needed to go out before 3. But something made me look at the screen. It was a number I didn't recognize. Atlanta area code. I picked up. A woman's voice said, "Is this Raymond Carter?" I said yes. She said, "Sir, I'm calling from Emory University Hospital. Your daughter, Emma Carter, was brought in by ambulance about an hour ago. You're listed as her emergency contact." The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of the sorting table to steady myself. I asked what happened. The woman's voice got softer. "Sir, I think you should come to the hospital. We're in the emergency department. Ask for Dr. Patel when you get here." I asked again what happened. My voice was loud now. Other postal workers were looking at me. "Sir, please come to the hospital," the woman said. "Dr. Patel will explain everything." Line went dead. I stood there holding my phone. My whole body shaking. My supervisor, Mr. Johnson, came over and asked if I was okay. I told him my daughter was in the hospital. I had to go. He told me to drive safe. I don't remember the drive to Emory. I don't remember parking. I don't remember walking into the emergency room. Next thing I knew, I was standing at the front desk telling a nurse my daughter's name. She picked up a phone, said something I couldn't hear, and then told me to have a seat. Someone would come talk to me. I couldn't sit. I paced back and forth in that waiting room while families around me watched TV or scrolled on their phones like it was a normal day. My chest felt tight. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. After what felt like hours but was probably only 10 minutes, a man in scrubs came through the double doors. He was Indian, maybe in his 40s, with tired eyes and a gentle face. "Mr. Carter?" he said. I nodded. "I'm Dr. Patel. Let's talk in private." He led me to a small room off the main waiting area. Just 4 chairs and a box of tissues on a table. That's when I knew. Rooms like that are for bad news. We sat down. Dr. Patel leaned forward with his hands folded. "Mr. Carter, Emma collapsed at work this afternoon. Her co-workers called 911 immediately, and paramedics brought her here. When she arrived, she was in cardiac arrest. We've been working on her for the past hour." I couldn't breathe. Cardiac arrest? Emma was 28 years old. She was healthy. She ran 3 miles every morning. She didn't smoke. Barely drank. How does a 28-year-old have a heart attack? Dr. Patel explained that Emma had something called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a genetic condition that causes the heart muscle to thicken. Most people don't know they have it until something triggers it. Exercise, stress, sometimes nothing at all. Emma's heart had been a ticking time bomb her whole life, and none of us knew. "We did everything we could," Dr. Patel said quietly. "But I'm so sorry, Mr. Carter. Emma didn't make it. She passed away at 2:35 this afternoon." The words didn't make sense. I heard them, but they didn't land. Didn't make it? Passed away? No, that wasn't possible. I'd just seen her 4 days ago. She'd made me a birthday cake. She'd hugged me. She'd told me she loved me. She couldn't be gone. People don't just die like that. I don't know how long I sat in that little room. Dr. Patel kept talking, but I couldn't hear him anymore. His mouth was moving, but the sound was underwater. Eventually, a nurse came in and asked if I wanted to see Emma. I nodded. She led me down a long hallway. The fluorescent lights were too bright. Everything smelled like antiseptic and death. We went into a room at the end of the hall, and there she was, my baby girl, lying on a hospital bed with a white sheet pulled up to her chest. Her eyes were closed. Her face was still. She looked like she was sleeping, except she wasn't breathing. I walked over to the bed slowly. My legs felt like concrete. I touched her hand. It was still warm. That made it worse somehow. If she was warm, she couldn't really be gone. Could she? I sat down in the chair next to the bed and took her hand in both of mine. I talked to her, told her to wake up, told her we had plans next Sunday, told her I needed her to come back. But she didn't move, didn't respond. The nurse stood in the corner watching me with sad eyes. After a while, she came over and put her hand on my shoulder. "Take all the time you need," she whispered. "But how much time do you need to say goodbye to your whole world? How much time is enough when it's your only child lying there cold and still?" I stayed until they made me leave. Must have been 3 hours, maybe 4. When I finally walked out of that hospital, the sun was setting. The sky was orange and purple. People were driving home from work, talking on their phones, living their normal lives. And I wanted to scream at all of them. How could the world keep turning when Emma was gone? My brother Marcus met me in the hospital parking lot. I'd called him at some point, though I don't remember doing it. He drove me home because I couldn't see straight. Tears kept blurring my vision. Marcus tried to talk to me, but I couldn't respond. When we got to my house, he helped me inside and sat with me in the living room. The photo album Emma had given me for my birthday was still on the coffee table where I'd left it. Marcus saw me staring at it and started crying too. We sat there together in the dark, two grown men crying for a girl who'd been the light of our family. Eventually, Marcus said he'd start making the necessary calls. Funeral home, church, family members. I nodded, but didn't really hear him. Over the next few days, people came and went from my house, brought food I didn't eat, said words that didn't comfort me. My pastor came and prayed with me. Church members filled my living room. Marcus handled all the funeral arrangements because I couldn't function. I'd sit in Emma's old bedroom for hours, looking at her childhood things I'd never packed away. Her trophies from dance competitions, her high school yearbooks, a teddy bear. I'd won her at a fair when she was 6. On the day before the funeral, Marcus asked me about Emma's villa. Did I want him to go over there and collect her things? The mortgage was in my name, but I'd have to decide what to do with the property. I told him no, told him to leave it alone. I couldn't face that place. Not yet, maybe not ever. That villa represented everything I'd hoped for Emma's future. And now there was no future. Just an empty house full of her things, full of her dreams, full of her ghost. The funeral was on a cold Saturday in November. Hundreds of people came. Emma's friends from college, her co-workers from the CDC, people from church, neighbors, family members I hadn't seen in years. The church was packed. Emma's casket sat at the front, covered in flowers. White roses, her favorite. I sat in the front pew between Marcus and my sister Patricia, staring at that closed casket and trying to understand how my daughter was inside it. How that beautiful, brilliant, kind girl was reduced to a body in a box. The pastor gave a sermon about God's plan and heaven and peace. People got up and shared memories. One of Emma's college friends talked about how Emma used to stay up all night, helping people study for exams. A co-worker from the CDC talked about Emma's passion for public health and how she was going to change the world. Marcus read a poem. I couldn't speak. I tried, but when I stood up at the podium, no words came out. I just stood there crying while the whole church watched. Marcus had to help me back to my seat. After the service, we drove to Greenwood Cemetery. They lowered Emma into the ground, while I stood there feeling like I was being buried too. When it was over and everyone left, I stayed behind. Sat on the ground next to her grave and talked to her. Told her I was sorry. Sorry, I couldn't protect her. Sorry, I couldn't save her. Sorry, I didn't know her heart was broken. As I drove away from that cemetery, I made a decision. I was never going back to Emma's villa. That place was hers. I'd leave it exactly as she left it. A shrine to the future that would never happen. I didn't know that decision would haunt me for 2 years. And I didn't know that the villa had a secret that would change everything. The months after Emma's funeral, blurred together like watercolors in the rain. I went back to work at the post office because I didn't know what else to do. Sitting at home, alone with my thoughts, was worse than sorting mail and pretending to be okay. My co-workers tried to be kind. They asked how I was doing, brought me coffee, gave me easier assignments. But I could see it in their eyes. That uncomfortable pity people have when they don't know what to say to someone who's lost everything. I appreciated their efforts, but I wanted to be invisible. I wanted to disappear into the routine and not feel anything. But grief doesn't work like that. It follows you everywhere. Every night, I'd come home to my empty house and sit in the living room with the lights off. I'd look at Emma's photo album until I couldn't see through my tears anymore. Then I'd go to her old bedroom and sit on her childhood bed and just exist in the space where she used to be. Church people kept inviting me to services, to Bible study, to dinners. I stopped going. Couldn't stomach all that talk about God's plan when God's plan took my only child. Marcus called me every few days to check on me. Sometimes I answered. Sometimes I didn't. He kept asking about the villa. What did I want to do with it? The mortgage was eating up money every month. Emma's things were still there. It wasn't good for the property to sit empty, but I couldn't deal with it. Every time I thought about going there, my chest would get tight and my hands would shake. That villa was the last piece of Emma's life, and facing it meant accepting she was really gone. About 6 months after Emma died, the CDC sent me a box, her personal items from her desk, a coffee mug with "World's Best Daughter" on it. I'd given that to her for Christmas, a framed photo of us from her college graduation, some notebooks, a sweater she kept in her office for when the AC got too cold, a succulent plant she'd named Herbert. I left the box in my hallway for 2 weeks before I could open it. When I finally did, the smell of her perfume hit me like a punch to the gut. She used to spray it on her scarves. One of the scarves was in the box. I held it to my face and sobbed. Around that same time, Marcus sat me down and had a hard conversation. He said I needed to make a decision about the villa. I could sell it. I could rent it out. I could go through Emma's things and pack them up. But I couldn't keep paying the mortgage on an empty house while drowning in grief. He was right, and I knew it. But I couldn't do it. Just give me more time, I kept saying. Marcus sighed. Ray, you're going to have to face this eventually. Avoiding that house won't bring her back. I knew that. But knowledge and ability are two different things. So the villa sat, empty, waiting, holding Emma's life inside its walls while I held her memory inside my broken heart. I paid the mortgage every month like clockwork. $942. It was the only thing I could do for Emma anymore. Keep her place safe. Keep her things protected. Keep some small part of her alive in this world. The first year after losing Emma was the hardest. Every milestone felt like a fresh wound. Her birthday came in March. I bought a cake, like I always did, and sang happy birthday alone in my kitchen. Then I sat there and ate cake while tears dripped under the plate. Mother's Day was torture because I'd always take Emma to visit Lorraine's grave on that day. And now I had to visit both their graves. Father's Day, people at church gave me sympathy looks because everyone knew I wasn't a father anymore. Not really. You stop being a father when your child dies. You become something else. Something I don't think there's even a word for. The anniversary of her death, November 14th. I took off work and stayed in bed all day. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Just laid there replaying the day I got that phone call. Around month 13, I started seeing a grief counselor. A woman named Dr. Reynolds who had kind eyes and a soft voice. She worked out of a small office in Decatur. I only went because Marcus threatened to move in with me if I didn't get help. Dr. Reynolds let me talk about Emma for the full hour every session. She didn't try to fix me or rush my healing. She just listened. And sometimes that's all you need. Someone to witness your pain without trying to make it disappear. She asked about the villa once. I told her I couldn't go there. Why not? She asked. I said because it would make Emma's death real in a way I wasn't ready for. Raymond, she said gently, it's already real. You're just postponing the grief. She was right, but I still couldn't do it. The second year was different. Not easier, but different. The sharp edges of grief became dull aches. I could think about Emma without completely falling apart. I could look at her photos without crying every time. I even started going back to church occasionally. Pastor Williams would see me come in late and slip into the back pew, and he'd give me a little nod. He never pushed me to be more involved, which I appreciated. Sometimes after service, I'd sit in the sanctuary after everyone left and pray. Not the kind of prayers, asking for anything, just talking to God, telling him I was angry, telling him I missed my daughter, telling him I didn't understand why. I never got answers, but somehow talking helped. I also started driving by Emma's villa, not stopping, not going inside, just driving past to look at it. The grass had grown wild. The flower beds Emma planted were full of weeds. The windows looked dark and sad. Each time I drove by, I'd tell myself next time I'd stop. Next time I'd go inside. Next time I'd deal with it. But next time never came. Marcus stopped asking about the villa. I think he figured I'd get there when I was ready. Or maybe he just got tired of asking. My sister Patricia called once and suggested I sell the villa and use the money to travel. Emma would want you to live your life, Ray, she said. But how do you live your life when your reason for living is gone? How do you move forward when forward means leaving your child further behind? Then came November 2023. 2 years since Emma died. 2 years since I'd stepped foot in that villa. I woke up on the morning of November 14th feeling different. Not better, not healed, just different. Like something had shifted inside me that I couldn't quite name. I went to work, came home, ate dinner, and then, without planning it, I got in my truck and started driving. I didn't consciously decide to go to the villa. My body just took me there. Like some part of me knew it was time. When I pulled up to the address on Brookhaven Drive, I expected to see what I'd seen every time I drove by. Overgrown grass, dead flower beds, a house slowly dying from neglect. But that's not what I saw. The yard was immaculate. The grass was cut. The hedges were trimmed. And in the flower beds where Emma had planted marigolds and petunias 2 years ago, there were fresh flowers blooming, bright reds and pinks and yellows. The porch looked clean. The windows sparkled in the late afternoon sun. I sat in my truck staring at that house, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Someone had been taking care of Emma's villa. But who? And why? I pulled the key from my glove compartment. I'd kept them there all this time. and got out of the truck. My hands were shaking as I walked up the stone path. The path Emma had walked 1,000 times. The path I'd helped her carry moving boxes up on that hot August day that felt like a lifetime ago. When I reached the front door, I took a deep breath and slid the key into the lock. It turned smooth. Someone had oiled it recently. The door swung open, and I stepped inside Emma's villa for the first time in 2 years. And what I saw made my knees weak. The inside of the villa looked like someone lived there. Not lived there like it was occupied, but lived there like it was loved. The hardwood floors gleamed with fresh polish. The windows were spotless, letting in golden afternoon light that made everything glow. I stood in the doorway, frozen, trying to understand what I was seeing. On the entry table, the same small table where Emma used to drop her keys, there was a vase with fresh flowers. Real flowers, not fake ones. White roses, Emma's favorite. The smell of them filled the space, mixing with a faint scent of lemon cleaning solution. My mind couldn't make sense of it. I'd left this place to rot. I'd abandoned it, the same way I'd abandoned my own will to live those first months after Emma died. But someone had been here. Someone had been taking care of my daughter's home like it mattered. Like she still mattered. I walked slowly through the living room, and each step revealed more impossibilities. The furniture I'd helped Emma arrange was exactly where we'd left it, but it had been dusted and cleaned. The books on her bookshelf were organized. The throw pillows on her couch were freshly fluffed. Even the window curtains looked crisp and clean. I ran my hand along the back of her couch, half expecting to feel dust, but my fingers came away clean. Someone had been here recently. Very recently. My heart was racing as I moved into the kitchen. Emma's coffee maker sat on the counter, cleaned and shining. The sink was spotless. I opened the refrigerator, I don't know why, just reflex, and found it empty but clean. No mold, no smell, just an empty, clean fridge. I closed it and stood there trying to breathe normally. None of this made sense. I'd paid the mortgage every month, but I'd canceled the utilities after a few months because I couldn't see the point. No power meant no lights, no heat, no air conditioning. This villa should have been dark and dusty and forgotten. Instead, it looked cared for, loved. I walked down the hallway toward Emma's bedroom, and each step felt heavier than the last. When I pushed open her bedroom door, I had to grab the door frame to steady myself. The room was exactly as Emma had left it. Her bed was made with the same purple comforter she'd picked out. Her dresser held the same framed photos. One of her and me, one of her mama, one of her college friends. But everything was clean, dust-free. Someone had been in my daughter's bedroom, in her most private space, and they'd treated it with care. I sat down on the edge of Emma's bed and put my head in my hands. Who would do this? Marcus? No, he would have told me. Plus, Marcus had been asking me for 2 years what to do with the villa. He wouldn't have been secretly maintaining it. Patricia? She lived in Birmingham, too far to be coming here regularly. None of Emma's friends had keys. I'd collected them all after she died. So who? That's when I remembered the security cameras. When Emma first moved in, I'd insisted on installing a security system. 2 cameras outside, one covering the front door and one covering the back. I'd paid for a subscription service that stored the footage in the cloud. I'd meant to cancel it after Emma died, but in the fog of grief, I'd forgotten. Was it possible the subscription was still active? I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and opened the app. I hadn't logged in since before Emma died. Had to reset my password because I couldn't remember it. When the app finally loaded, I saw the villa listed. Both cameras showed as active. My chest got tight. I clicked on the front door camera and selected the recording history. The screen filled with thumbnails of recorded motion events. Thousands of them, going back 2 years. My finger hovered over the most recent recording. It was dated 3 days ago. I clicked it. The video loaded, and I watched as a woman walked up to Emma's front door. She was older, maybe in her 60s, African American, wearing jeans and a cardigan sweater. She carried a bag of what looked like gardening supplies. She pulled out a key to my daughter's house, and unlocked the door like she belonged there. The timestamp said she stayed for 2 hours. I scrolled back further. More videos of the same woman coming once a week, sometimes twice, always carrying something, cleaning supplies, garden tools, flowers. Sometimes she'd just sit on the porch for a while before leaving. I went back further in the timeline. 6 months ago, a year ago, 18 months ago. She was there throughout all of it. This stranger had been coming to Emma's villa for nearly 2 years, taking care of it, maintaining it, treating it like it was sacred ground. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone. Who was this woman? How did she get a key? Why was she doing this? I scrolled all the way back to the oldest footage I could find. The date was November 28th, 2021. 2 weeks after Emma's funeral. The video showed the same woman standing at the front door. She wasn't carrying anything this first time. She just stood there with her hand on the door, crying. Her shoulders shook with sobs. After a few minutes, she pulled out a key and unlocked the door. She went inside and stayed for over 3 hours. When she came back out, her eyes were red and swollen, but there was something on her face that looked like peace, or maybe gratitude. I didn't understand any of it. I stood up from Emma's bed and walked back to the living room, my mind spinning. This woman had been caring for my daughter's home for 2 years. 2 years of cleaning and maintaining and loving a place that belonged to a girl she supposedly never knew. But how did she have a key? Had Emma given it to her? Had they been friends? Why had I never heard about her? I opened this app again and pulled up the live camera feed. The front door camera showed the empty porch. The back door camera showed the quiet garden. But then I heard something. A sound that made my blood run cold. Footsteps. Coming from the back of the villa. Someone was here. Right now. I turned slowly toward the hallway, my phone clutched in my sweating hand. The footsteps got closer. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Then a figure appeared in the hallway. The woman from the videos. She was real. She was here. She was staring at me with wide eyes, her hand flying to her mouth. For a moment, neither of us moved. We just stood there in Emma's living room, 2 strangers connected by a mystery I didn't understand. Then she spoke, and her voice was shaking. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry for intruding. I should have asked permission, but I couldn't find you, and I couldn't—" Her voice broke. Tears started streaming down her face. I couldn't let it die. Not after what she gave me. I found my voice, though it came out rough and broken. "Who are you?" The woman took a step closer, and the late afternoon light from the window hit her face. She was crying hard now, but she was also smiling, like she'd been waiting 2 years for this moment. "My name is Margaret Henderson," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And I'm alive because of your daughter, Mr. Carter. Emma saved my life. She gave me her heart." The words didn't register at first. They just hung in the air between us like smoke. Emma gave me her heart. I heard them, but my brain couldn't process what they meant. I stood there in my daughter's living room, staring at this crying stranger named Margaret Henderson, trying to understand. "What do you mean?" I finally asked. My voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. Margaret wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and took a shaky breath. 2 years ago, I was dying, Mr. Carter. I had congestive heart failure. Had it for years, but it got worse fast. By November 2021, I was on the transplant list, but my doctor said I probably wouldn't make it more than a few weeks. I was 62 years old, and I was dying. She sat down on Emma's couch like her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. I stayed standing, rooted to the spot, my whole body numb. On November 14th, 2021, I got the call, Margaret continued, her voice shaking with emotion. They had a heart, a match, a young woman who'd passed away suddenly. They didn't tell me much at first, just that she was 28, healthy, and that her family had agreed to organ donation. They did the surgery that night, 8 hours. When I woke up, I had someone else's heart beating in my chest. Your daughter's heart, Mr. Carter, Emma's heart. I couldn't breathe. My vision went blurry. I sat down hard in the chair across from Margaret, my legs finally giving out. Emma was an organ donor. I knew that. She'd marked it on her driver's license when she was 18. We'd talked about it once. She'd said if anything ever happened to her, she wanted to help people. I'd told her nothing was going to happen to her. I was wrong. I didn't know who my donor was at first, Margaret said, her words tumbling out like she'd been holding them in for 2 years. They don't tell you right away. Hospital policy. But I wanted to know, needed to know. This person saved my life, and I didn't even know their name. She pulled a tissue from her pocket and dabbed at her eyes. About a month after the surgery, my transplant coordinator gave me some information. My donor's first name, Emma, her age, 28, her city, Atlanta, and that her family had agreed to allow contact if I wanted to reach out. Margaret looked at me with those tear-filled eyes, and I saw gratitude so deep it was almost painful. I wanted to write to you, Mr. Carter, to thank you, to tell you what Emma's gift meant. But I was scared. Scared you'd be angry. Scared you'd hate me for being alive when your daughter wasn't. So I waited. And while I waited, I tried to learn more about her. Margaret pulled out her phone with shaking hands and showed me a news article. It was from the CDC's website, a memorial piece about Emma. It talked about her work, her passion for public health, her bright future cut short. And at the bottom, it mentioned that Emma's family requested donations be made to the American Heart Association in her memory. I read everything I could find about her, Margaret said quietly. Every article, every social media post her friends made remembering her. I learned she loved to read, that she volunteered at a food bank in college, that she was close to her father. That's you. She looked at me, and fresh tears spilled over. The more I learned about Emma, the more I understood the gift I'd been given. Not just a heart, but a heart that belonged to someone special, someone who cared about helping people, someone who made the world better just by being in it. I couldn't speak. My throat was closed up tight. Margaret continued. About 2 months after the surgery, I found out about this villa. One of Emma's co-workers from the CDC posted a photo on social media. They were doing a memorial thing, and the photo showed Emma standing in front of this house. The post said it was her new home that she'd just moved into before she died. I recognized the address from the photo's location tag. Margaret stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden she'd been maintaining. I drove here one day, just to see it, to see where Emma had lived, where she'd been happy. When I pulled up and saw the overgrown grass and the dead flowers, something broke inside me. This place was dying, just like I would have died without Emma's heart. It felt wrong. Felt like I was letting her down. "So you came inside?" I asked, finally finding my voice. Margaret nodded. "I know it was wrong. I'm so sorry, but I couldn't help myself. I picked the lock on the back door. I used to be a locksmith before I got sick, and I came in. And Mr. Carter, when I stepped inside, I felt her. I know that sounds crazy, but I felt Emma's presence here. This was her space, her home, and it was beautiful." She turned back to me, and her voice got stronger. "I sat on this couch and cried for 3 hours. Cried for Emma. Cried for you. Cried for the unfairness of it all. But I also felt grateful. Grateful to be alive. Grateful that Emma's heart was still beating, even if it was beating in my chest instead of hers." Margaret sat back down and looked me straight in the eye. "I decided that day that I would take care of this place. I couldn't bring Emma back, couldn't undo what happened, but I could keep her home alive. So I got a key made and started coming here. Once a week at first, then twice a week. I cleaned, I dusted, I fixed things that broke. I planted flowers because the photo I saw showed Emma loved flowers." She gestured around the room. "This became my church, Mr. Carter. The place where I came to say thank you, to talk to Emma, to tell her about the life she gave me, about my grandchildren who wouldn't exist if I'd died, about the sunrises I get to see because of her, about every single day I'm alive because she was willing to be a donor." I sat there listening to Margaret's words, and something inside me started to crack. Not break, crack. Like ice on a lake when spring comes. For 2 years I'd been drowning in grief, thinking Emma's death meant nothing, thinking it was just loss, just pain, just waste. But here was this woman, this stranger, with my daughter's heart beating in her chest, alive because Emma died, living because Emma gave. "Can I started, then stopped. My voice cracked. I tried again. "Can I hear it?" Margaret looked confused. "Hear what, Mr. Carter?" "Emma's heart," I whispered. "Can I hear my daughter's heart?" Margaret's face crumpled, and she started crying again. But she nodded. She stood up and crossed the room to where I sat. Then she knelt down in front of me and took my hand. She placed it on her chest, right over her heart. And I felt it. The steady thump, 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 thump. Emma's heart, still beating, still alive, still giving life 2 years after my daughter took her last breath. I bent forward and pressed my ear against Margaret's chest, and I heard it, that beautiful, steady rhythm. The sound I used to hear when Emma was a baby and she'd fall asleep on my chest, the sound of life, the sound of love, the sound of my daughter still existing in this world. I sobbed like I hadn't sobbed since the funeral deep, wrenching cries that came from somewhere so far down I didn't know it existed. Margaret wrapped her arms around me and held me while I cried. Two strangers connected by loss and life and a heart that refused to stop beating. When I finally pulled away, Margaret was crying too. We sat there in Emma's living room as the sun set outside, two broken people trying to understand grace. After a long silence, Margaret stood up and walked to Emma's bookshelf. She pulled out a photo album I didn't recognize, not the one Emma had given me for my birthday, but a different one. "I made this," Margaret said softly, bringing it over to me. "I hope you don't mind. I found a photo printer at a thrift store and started printing pictures of Emma that I found online. Pictures her friends posted. I wanted to remember her face, the face of my angel." She handed me the album, and I opened it with trembling hands. The first page had a picture of Emma at her college graduation. Someone had taken it from the audience. You could see me in the background, standing up and cheering. The next page showed Emma at work at the CDC, smiling at her desk. Then Emma with friends at a restaurant. Emma at a park. Emma laughing, Emma living. "Where did you get all these?" I asked, my voice rough. "Social media mostly," Margaret said. Her friends kept her memory alive online. They'd post throwback photos, memories, stories. I saved every single one. I wanted to know her, even though I never got to meet her. On the last page of the album, Margaret had written something in careful handwriting. "Thank you, Emma Grace Carter. Every beat of this heart is a prayer of gratitude. You saved my life, and I will spend the rest of it honoring yours." I closed the album and looked at Margaret. Really looked at her. She was 64, now, with silver hair and kind eyes and hands that showed years of work. She wore a simple blouse and jeans, gold wedding band on her finger. She looked like somebody's grandmother, which it turned out she was. "Tell me about your family," I said. I don't know why I asked. Maybe because I needed to know that Emma's death had meaning beyond just keeping one woman alive. Maybe because I needed to understand the full scope of what my daughter had given. Margaret's face lit up like sunrise. "I have 3 children," she said. 2 sons and a daughter. David is 40, Marcus is 38, and my baby, Lisa, is 35. They all thought they were going to lose me. She pulled out her phone again and showed me a photo. 3 adults and 7 children, all gathered around Margaret at what looked like a birthday party. Everyone was smiling. "These are my grandbabies," Margaret said, her voice thick with emotion. 7 of them, ages 3 to 14. When I got sick, the oldest ones were old enough to understand Grandma might die. They said goodbye to me before my surgery, told me they loved me. My grandson Jeremy, he was 12 at the time, he wrote me a letter saying I was the best grandma in the world. She wiped her eyes. "Mr. Carter, because of Emma, I got to see all of them grow. I was at Jeremy's middle school graduation last year. I taught my youngest granddaughter how to ride a bike. I was there when my son David got promoted at his job. I'm alive for all of it. Every single moment, because of your daughter. The weight of it hit me like a truck. 7 grandchildren, 3 children, 1 woman, all of them had Margaret in their lives because Emma wasn't in mine. It wasn't fair, but it was real, and it was something bigger than just loss." "Do they know?" I asked. "About Emma?" Margaret nodded. "I told them everything, showed them the articles about her, explained that a young woman with her whole life ahead of her gave me a second chance. My grandkids call her Angel Emma. They pray for her every night, for her and for you." She reached over and touched my hand gently. "They wanted to meet you, but I didn't know how to find you. I looked for a Raymond Carter in Atlanta, but there are dozens. I thought about hiring a private investigator, but that felt intrusive. So I just kept coming here, kept taking care of Emma's home, kept hoping that one day you'd come back." I looked around the villa, at the clean floors, the dusted furniture, the fresh flowers. 2 years of Margaret coming here alone. 2 years of her talking to my dead daughter and thanking her and honoring her. 2 years of love given to a stranger she never met. "The letters," I said suddenly, remembering what Margaret had mentioned in the hospital room through Margaret's words. "You said something about gratitude letters." Margaret nodded eagerly. "Yes, I write to Emma. I know she can't read them, but I write anyway, telling her about my days, about my family, about the life she gave me." She stood up and walked to Emma's bedroom. I followed her. She went to Emma's dresser and opened the top drawer. Inside were dozens of envelopes, all addressed to Emma Grace Carter, my angel. Margaret picked up the stack and handed it to me. "These are 2 years of thank you letters," she said quietly. "One for every week I've been alive because of her. I keep them here because this is her home. I wanted her to have them." I opened the top envelope. The letter was dated last week. It read, "Dear Emma, it's November again. 2 years since you left this world and gave me life. Today I took my granddaughter Sophie to the park. She's 4 now. She pointed at the birds and asked why they sing. I told her they sing because they're happy to be alive, just like me. Thank you for my happiness, Emma. Thank you for Sophie's laughter. Thank you for letting me see another November. With eternal gratitude, Margaret." I couldn't read anymore. I held that stack of letters and felt the weight of them. 2 years of gratitude. 2 years of someone remembering my daughter when I thought the world had forgotten. 2 years of Emma's heart beating in Margaret's chest, while Margaret lived the life Emma should have had. It wasn't enough. Nothing would ever be enough to replace Emma. But it was something. It was proof that my daughter mattered, that her death wasn't meaningless, that she'd saved a life, and by extension, touched a whole family. I looked at Margaret standing in Emma's bedroom, and I saw something I hadn't seen in 2 years. I saw purpose. "Would you like to have dinner sometime?" I asked suddenly. The word surprised me as much as they surprised Margaret. "You and your family. I'd like to meet them. I'd like to meet the people Emma saved." Margaret's eyes went wide, and fresh tears spilled over. "Really? You'd want that?" I nodded. "Emma would want me to know them. She'd want me to see that her heart is still making a difference." Margaret crossed the room and hugged me tight. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for giving me a chance. Thank you for not hating me." I hugged her back, and for the first time in 2 years, I didn't feel so alone. 2 weeks later, I found myself standing in front of a house in Lithonia, Georgia, holding a pie I'd bought from the grocery store because I didn't trust myself to bake one. Margaret had invited me to Sunday dinner with her family. I almost backed out 3 times. The morning of dinner, I sat in my truck for 20 minutes trying to convince myself to go home. But something pushed me forward. Maybe it was Emma. Maybe it was just the desperate need to feel connected to something besides grief. I rang the doorbell. Margaret answered immediately, like she'd been waiting by the door. "Mr. Carter," she said, smiling wide. "Come in, come in." She took the pie from my hands and led me inside. The house smelled like roast chicken and cornbread. Gospel music played softly from somewhere, and then they appeared. Margaret's family. Her daughter Lisa came out of the kitchen first, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She was tall with her mother's kind eyes. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. "Thank you so much for coming. We've wanted to meet you for so long." She hugged me, and I stood there awkwardly patting her back. Then came the sons, David and Marcus. Both big guys with warm handshakes and grateful eyes. "Sir, it's an honor," David said. "An honor to meet Emma's father." The grandchildren came next, tumbling into the living room like puppies. 7 kids, ranging from a teenager down to a 3-year-old. They all stopped and stared at me with wide eyes. "Is that him?" one of the younger girls whispered loudly. "Is that Angel Emma's daddy?" Margaret laughed and introduced each child by name. Jeremy, the oldest at 14, Taylor 12, Chris 10, Madison 8, Jordan 6, Sophia 4, and the baby, Marcus Jr., just turned 3. They all looked at me like I was someone special, like I was a hero, but I wasn't. I was just a grieving father who'd lost everything. We sat down to dinner at a long table that barely fit everyone. They'd put me at the head of the table, a position that felt too important for someone who'd done nothing to deserve it. Margaret sat to my right. The food kept coming. Roast chicken, collard greens, mac and cheese, cornbread, sweet potato casserole, green beans. More food than I'd seen since before Emma died. Before we ate, Margaret's son David asked if he could say grace. Everyone bowed their heads. "Dear Lord," David began, "we thank you for this food and for this family. We thank you for bringing Mr. Carter here today. And we thank you for Emma Grace Carter, who saved our mother's life and gave us more time with her. We pray for Mr. Carter's healing. We pray for Emma's soul, and we thank you for the gift of life. Amen." A chorus of amens echoed around the table. I couldn't say it. My throat was too tight. As we ate, the family asked me about Emma. What was she like as a little girl? What did she want to be when she grew up? What were her favorite things? I started talking. Slowly at first, then faster. I told them about Emma learning to ride a bike and refusing training wheels because she said training wheels were for babies. I told them about her winning the spelling bee in 5th grade, about her dancing in the living room to old Motown records, about her terrible cooking skills. She once made spaghetti that was somehow both mushy and hard at the same time. The family laughed at my stories. The kids especially loved hearing about Emma as a kid. "Was she funny?" little Sophia asked. "Very funny," I said, smiling at the memory. "She used to tell the worst jokes so bad they were good." "Tell us one," Jeremy said. I thought for a moment. "Okay, why did the Scarecrow win an award?" The kids all shook their heads. "Because he was outstanding in his field," I said. "Emma used to tell that joke all the time." The kids groaned and laughed, and for a second, it felt like Emma was there with us, laughing at her own terrible joke. After dinner, the adults sat in the living room while the kids played outside. Margaret brought me a photo album. Not the one she'd shown me at the villa, but a family album. She showed me pictures from the past 2 years. Her at Christmas with the grandkids. Her 50th wedding anniversary with her husband Robert, who'd passed away a year ago, her at the beach with her daughter, her holding baby Marcus Jr. when he was born. Every single moment in this album happened because of Emma, Margaret said quietly. Every single smile, every celebration, every memory. Your daughter gave me all of this. Lisa, Margaret's daughter, sat down next to me. Mr. Carter, I need you to understand something, she said, her voice intense. When my mom got sick, we thought we were going to lose her. We were preparing for her funeral, writing her obituary, picking out a cemetery plot. Then Emma saved her. Emma gave my kids their grandmother, gave my brothers and me our mother, gave all of us more time. She started crying. I know it's not fair. I know Emma should be here, living her life, but please know that her gift meant everything to us. We won't waste it. We'll make sure her sacrifice mattered. I didn't know what to say. How do you respond to that? How do you tell someone you're glad their mother is alive when it means your daughter is dead? But looking at this family, at these 3 grown children and 7 grandchildren, who all got to keep their matriarch because Emma's heart kept beating, I felt something shift. Not peace, exactly, but maybe the beginning of acceptance. After that dinner, things changed. Margaret and I started talking on the phone once a week. She'd call me on Sunday evenings and tell me about her week, and I'd tell her about mine. Sometimes we'd talk about Emma. Sometimes we'd talk about other things. Her grandkids, my work at the post office, the weather. It felt strange at first, being friends with the woman who had my daughter's heart. But the more we talked, the more natural it became. Margaret understood my grief in a way no one else did. She'd lost her husband Robert a year ago, so she knew what it felt like to lose someone you love. And I understood her gratitude, in a way maybe no one else could, because I'd given Emma life once when she was born, and Emma had given Margaret life when she died. We were connected by loss and life and love. About a month after that first dinner, Margaret asked if I'd be willing to go with her to a support group, a group for organ recipients and donor families. I'd never considered such a thing, but Margaret said it might help. There are other people like us, she said, people who understand this strange grief and gratitude thing we're living. So I went. The group met in a church basement in Decatur. There were about 15 people there. Some were recipients who'd gotten kidneys, livers, hearts, lungs. Some were family members of donors. Some were both. We sat in a circle and shared our stories. I listened to a mother talk about losing her teenage son in a car accident and how his organs saved 4 people. I listened to a man talk about receiving a liver and feeling guilty for being happy when someone had to die for him to live. I listened to stories of pain and loss and second chances and complicated emotions that didn't have easy names. When it was my turn to share, I told them about Emma, about losing her suddenly, about the 2 years I spent drowning in grief, about finding Margaret at the villa, and learning that Emma's heart was still beating. I thought I'd hate her, I admitted. When I first found out that someone else had Emma's heart, I thought I'd be angry, but I'm not. I paused, trying to find the right word. I'm grateful. Grateful that Emma's death meant something. Grateful that her heart is still in this world, still giving life. It doesn't take away my pain, doesn't bring Emma back, but it means she mattered, and maybe that's enough. After the meeting, several people came up to me, hugged me, thanked me for sharing. A woman whose daughter had received Emma's kidney introduced herself. Your Emma gave my Rebecca 10 more years, she said, crying. Rebecca passed away last month, but those 10 years were everything. Emma's gift was everything. I hadn't known Emma's kidneys had been donated to. Hadn't asked. But hearing that another family got more time because of my daughter, that opened something in me. A few weeks later, Margaret asked if I'd be willing to visit the villa with her, not to clean it or maintain it, but just to be there together, to remember Emma together. I said yes. We met there on a Saturday afternoon in December. The weather was cold, but the sun was shining. And Margaret had brought flowers, marigolds and petunias, Emma's favorites. We planted them together in the front garden, working side by side in silence. When we finished, we sat on the porch steps and looked at the garden. She had good taste, Margaret said. Beautiful home, beautiful flowers, beautiful life. I nodded. She got that from her mama. Lorraine loved gardening. Margaret smiled. Tell me about Lorraine. So I did. I told her about meeting Lorraine at church when we were both 19, about our wedding in that same church 5 years later, about how Lorraine wanted a dozen kids, but God only gave us Emma, about how she fought cancer like a warrior and still managed to smile through the pain, about how Emma was exactly like her mother, stubborn, kind, fierce, loving. Emma had the best of both of you, Margaret said softly, strong like her father, loving like her mother. The world lost something precious when she died. But it gained something too, I said, looking at Margaret. It kept you. Margaret reached over and took my hand. I'm living for both of us. Now, she said, for me and for Emma. I won't waste this gift. We sat there holding hands while the sun set. Two people connected by a heart that refused to stop beating. It's been 6 months since that day I walked into Emma's villa and found Margaret. 6 months since I learned that my daughter's heart was still beating in someone else's chest. 6 months since my world turned upside down again. But this time, in a way that felt like grace. I wish I could tell you that everything is perfect now, that I don't cry anymore, that the grief has magically disappeared. But that would be a lie. I still miss Emma every single day, still wake up sometimes forgetting she's gone and reaching for my phone to call her, still see things that remind me of her and feel that hollow ache in my chest. Grief doesn't just go away, it changes shape, becomes something you carry instead of something that carries you. But something has changed. I'm not drowning anymore. I'm learning to swim, and Margaret has been a big part of that. We've become close friends over these past 6 months. I have dinner with her family once a month. I've watched her grandkids' baseball games and dance recitals. I've become something like a grandfather to those 7 kids, which feels both strange and wonderful. They call me Mr. Ray, and little Sophia made me a drawing of me and Angel Emma holding hands in heaven. I keep it on my refrigerator. I've also started volunteering with an organ donation awareness organization. I go to high schools and churches and community centers and tell Emma's story. Tell them about the importance of being a donor, about how one person's death can save 8 lives, about how Emma's gift saved Margaret and changed her whole family. Sometimes, when I'm speaking, I touch my chest and imagine I can feel Emma's heartbeat. Even though it's in Margaret's chest now, it still belongs to Emma. It will always belong to Emma. I have made peace with the villa too. Margaret and I decided to rent it out to a young woman, starting her career at the CDC, just like Emma did. The rent money goes into a scholarship fund we started in Emma's name. Every year, we'll give a full scholarship to a Spelman College student studying public health. Emma would have loved that. Before the new renter moved in, I spent a whole day there packing up Emma's personal things. Margaret helped me. We cried together as we folded Emma's clothes and wrapped up her photos and books. But we also laughed remembering stories. And when we finished, the villa didn't feel like a tomb anymore. It felt like a home again. A place where someone could live and grow and become who they were meant to be. Just like Emma did. I kept some of Emma's things. Her photos, her favorite books, the coffee mug I gave her, and Margaret's letters. All 2 years' worth of gratitude letters. I keep them in a box in Emma's old bedroom at my house. Sometimes when I'm having a hard day, I read one. And I'm reminded that Emma's life mattered. That her death wasn't meaningless. That love doesn't end when the heart stops beating. Just last week, Margaret called me with news. Her daughter Lisa is pregnant with her 4th child. A girl, and they're naming her Emma Grace. After her angel Emma, Lisa said when she told me. After the woman who gave my kids their grandmother. I cried when I heard that. Happy tears this time. Emma's name will live on. Emma's legacy will continue. And somewhere in Atlanta, a little girl will grow up knowing she was named after an angel who saved her grandmother's life. I still visit Emma's grave every Sunday after church. I bring flowers and sit on the ground and talk to her. Tell her about Margaret and the family and the scholarship fund. Tell her about little Emma Grace, who'll be born in June. Tell her I'm doing okay, that I'm learning to live again, that her death broke me, but her legacy is putting me back together. Sometimes Margaret comes with me. She'll stand at Emma's grave with her hand on her chest, feeling Emma's heartbeat, and she'll whisper, "Thank you," over and over. And I'll stand there, watching this woman who's alive because my daughter died. And I'll feel something I never thought I'd feel again. I'll feel grateful. Not grateful that Emma died. I'll never be grateful for that. But grateful that her death wasn't just loss. It was also gift. It was also life. It was also love, continuing even after the heart stops beating in its original body. If you've ever lost someone you love, you know what I'm talking about. You know that hollow feeling that never completely goes away. You know the weight of absence, the pain of memories that hurt because the person isn't here to make new ones. But you also know, or maybe you're learning, like I am, that love is stronger than death, that the people we lose stay with us in ways we can't always see, that sometimes, if we're lucky, we get signs that our loved ones are still making a difference in this world. Margaret Henderson is my sign. She's proof that Emma Grace Carter mattered, that her 28 years on this earth meant something, that her heart is still beating, still giving life, still spreading love. So here's what I want to tell you, wherever you're watching from, whether you're in Atlanta or Alaska or Australia or Africa, whether you're grieving or grateful or somewhere in between. Life is precious. Life is a gift. And when we lose someone we love, we lose a piece of ourselves. But we also gain something. We gain their legacy, their memory, the impact they made on the world. Emma's impact was saving Margaret's life. What will your impact be? What will your legacy be? Don't wait until you're gone to make a difference. Do it now. Be an organ donor. Save a life. Give someone a second chance. And if you've lost someone, find a way to keep their memory alive. Start a scholarship. Volunteer. Help others. Turn your grief into something that honors them. That's what I'm trying to do. I am turning my pain into purpose. My loss into legacy. It's not easy. Some days I still can't get out of bed, but I keep going because Emma would want me to, because Margaret needs me to, because somewhere in Atlanta, a little girl named Emma Grace will be born in June, and I want to be here to meet her. I want to tell her about the angel she was named after, the angel with the generous heart. That's my daughter's story. That's my story. That's our story. A story about loss and love and hearts that keep beating even when they're in someone else's chest. A story about finding peace in the most unexpected places. And a story about learning that sometimes the worst day of your life can also be someone else's second chance at living. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And if this story touched you, hit that like button and subscribe. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and if you've ever experienced loss that turned into something beautiful. We're all connected by these stories of pain and hope, and maybe, just maybe, sharing them will help us all heal a little bit more. God bless you, and God bless Emma. Grace Carter, my daughter, my angel, the girl with the giving heart.